Hey everybody, when you move to a completely different country like I did, moving across the world from America to Sweden, you're going to experience some things in the country that you moved to that are a little bit culturally different.
And I will then pour the water on his head for the Father, the Son.
Maybe we can just skip that part.
Yeah.
If you just can skip to say the words Holy Ghost
Jesus
and
and
Jesus.
that. Yeah, I mean, we don't really believe in that.
So you want to go straight to the hymn then?
Well, we were thinking about maybe you can play this song, Don't You Worry Child, with Swedish House Mafia.
I've already made a video on this channel a long time ago about 5 things that Swedish people do that I find weird. But a lot of times there's things where people that are not from Sweden, when they come to Sweden, the Swedish people think that they're weird for doing that. So that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. 5 things that non-Swedish people do that Swedish people think is just weird. The first thing that non-Swedes might do in Sweden that the Swedish people think is weird is wearing wild or extravagant clothing. Now, Swedish people are known for having pretty good style, but also a very minimalistic and simple style. I think since moving to Sweden personally, I've worn a lot more solid colors like white, black, gray, a lot of these just sort of things because everything matches, everything goes together very well when you wear like all black, for example. And in Sweden, when you go outside the door, especially in wintertime, you don't see a lot of color. I've always been somebody that really likes this minimalistic, simple style, and I definitely have changed the way I dressed since I moved to Sweden 3 years ago. I remember back in high school, I was wearing like crazy bright colored athletic clothing. Being an athletic guy myself, I was always wearing sports clothes and standing out and those sorts of things, and that's something that the people, they just don't really do here quite as much. So if you're in Sweden and you see somebody wearing extremely bright colors or crazy clothing and drawing attention to themselves, chances are they may not be Swedish. The second thing that non-Swedish people will do in Sweden that the Swedish people will find a little bit weird, and this is sort of, I had the flip side when I was dating a Swedish girl in America and we were at a grocery store and I did something that I thought was actually kind of normal. I had all my groceries in the basket. It wasn't a lot of groceries, and I just put the basket on the conveyor belt at the grocery store. And my Swedish girlfriend at the time, she looked at me, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean? It's just a few things and the basket fits on the conveyor belt. Like, that's not a terrible thing to do." And she goes, "Oh, the people that work at the grocery store, that's really bad for their back. They have to reach in the basket and grab the groceries and all these things." And I'm going, huh, that's actually right. I mean, maybe that was just me being lazy and not thinking about somebody else. But yeah, that's something that you would never see in Sweden. And a lot of Swedes will even go the extra mile, as when they take the things out of their basket, they'll even turn so that the scanning barcode is lined up properly to make life easier for the checkout clerk, which I'd never really seen anybody do this in America until I had dated this Swedish girl and she was taking the things out of the basket and actually aligning them. And I think this sort of sums up the Swedish mentality in a lot of ways because they're very thoughtful and considerate of other people and they don't want to be inconvenient to those around them. So they always try to go the extra mile to make other people around them a little bit more comfortable or make other people's lives easier. It's a very community-centered mentality where everybody should do their part and pitch in. And even in a small thing like putting your grocery basket on the conveyor belt versus taking it out and actually aligning the scanner barcode, I think that says a lot about Swedish people. The third thing that non-Swedish people do that Swedish people will find weird is talking to strangers. I know, this is sort of a crazy one because in America, this is totally no big deal. If you're out and about somewhere at a mall, at a grocery store, anything like that, it's completely normal to strike up a conversation with the people that are around you. And in Sweden, that is so not the case. And I was coming into Sweden when I first moved here with this American mentality of striking up a conversation. And it's not like the Swedish people were too weirded out because they were like, okay, he's a foreigner, he doesn't really get how we do things here. But now after living here in Sweden for 3 years, I definitely would say that I don't like to strike up small talk in the same way I maybe would. Unless I go to America on vacation for like a month or something and then come back to Sweden, then I'll be like in my American like chatty mode when I get back and I'm like, wait, no, I'm back in Sweden. Like, I'm not gonna be chatting up random people as much anymore. And now after living in Sweden for 3 years, I even get a little bit like, whoa, when somebody approaches me in public and wants to talk to me. Maybe it's somebody that recognizes me from my YouTube channel or something, and I always love to say hi. So if you see me around, you can always come say hi to me. I always love meeting people that watch my videos. I think that's really cool. But sometimes, you know, people will strike up a random conversation or something when that happens. It's not something that happens very often, but I'm always like, whoa, okay, this is, it's surprising for me because now I've just become so used to the Swedish culture. And I think there's definitely pros and cons when it comes to this. In some regards, I think it's nice living in a place where it's easier to meet people, it's easier to have this small talk, and you can talk to people and people aren't like, oh, what's wrong with this person? Like, why are they talking to me? It's none of that. I think there's definitely pros to that. But on the flip side, it can be nice living in a place where people just respect other people's personal space and time, and everybody just, you can just sort of be relaxed here because you don't feel like you have to talk to strangers or these sorts of things. It's like, I don't know. I think there's like this, when I go out in public in Stockholm, I have my AirPods in and I'm walking around listening to music and stuff, and I'm sort of doing my own thing. And I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that either. I think there's people out there that appreciate having a little bit more of that personal space and not having to interact with people as much. Now, this fourth one is one that has gotten me into trouble a little bit at times. And because that is that people from other countries, they tend to joke around a lot more, I would say, than Swedish people. Like, going around with my friends in America, we're constantly like making fun of each other, making jokes with each other, and we know among our friend group that it is not serious.
Here's what I want you to realize. A, you're lying. Nobody comes up to you. Okay? Stephen A. Smith does not have one fan. Not one. There's never been a request for a picture. There's never been a request for a debate. You are you're snap finger famous. That's the guy, what's the guy that's on the, what's the guy that's on the thing?
I can see it in the way that Swedish people interact with each other. They're sort of more, I would say, more positive and uplifting in their ways of being with each other, whereas Americans are sort of putting each other down, but it can be in like an endearing way. And the fifth and final thing in this video that non-Swedish people do that Swedes will find weird is to speak Swedish. Yeah, I know, that's crazy. Swedish people are so good at English that when you're not Swedish and you speak Swedish to them, they're sort of like confused. They're like, should I switch to English? Should I speak Swedish? Like, I consider myself to be fluent in Swedish after living here for over 3 years. I've made a lot of videos on my channel speaking Swedish along the way, so you guys can check those out and see my progress as I learn the language. But even now, I still have an accent. I mean, people can tell that I'm not Swedish when I'm speaking Swedish. So sometimes I'll speak Swedish to somebody and they will switch to English, and I'm like, okay, like, I don't mind, I can speak English as well. But it's interesting and funny to see that they're confused. And I think that actually says a lot about Swedish culture, that when you move to Sweden, you don't necessarily have to know Swedish because everybody here is so good at English. And I think this fifth point, it really says a lot and is a testament to the English skills that Swedish people have. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit sad because I think when you move to a foreign country, or if you're living in a country, I think there's a lot of value in learning that language because you're going to understand the culture more. You're going to be able to communicate with everybody easier. You're going to be able to understand what's going on around you. If you decide to call a country home, I think learning the language is the least you can do if you want to live in the place. But that's just my opinion, and that's the beauty of Sweden, is that you actually don't have to speak Swedish to function in Swedish society, which is crazy. So that's it for this one, guys. Those are the 5 things that non-Swedish people do that Swedish people may find weird. Comment down below which was the most weird for you if you're Swedish. Which one surprised you the most? I'm very curious to see that. And with that, I'm going to sign off for now. I'll see you guys in another video.